Just for folks in the audience, we're just waiting on Dr. Ruth. She's trying to make it through the 85-400 interchange. We hope she'll be here sometime this week. But I think she'll be here just shortly. Okay, I heard from Dr. Ruth, she is getting into the building and will be here shortly, and suggested we just go on and get started for the sake of time, so she'll be here momentarily. Once again, ask everybody to please turn off your cell phones, and if you want to speak, you've got 2 minutes. I think everybody's probably signed in with one of the speaker's cards, but if you have a last-minute urge to say something and you didn't, please do so now. Otherwise, I would ask for any additions or changes to the agenda before we make a motion, before someone makes a motion to approve the agenda, please.
I'd like to make a change to the agenda, move the approval of minutes to the next meeting.
Okay.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. The motion is to move approval of the minutes to our next regular meeting in November. There were a few things missing from our packet, and we're just going to move the whole package to the next meeting if the board approves. Any questions or comments? Mr. Wingate, did you get that?
We can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I did.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor of moving the approval of the minutes to the regularly scheduled November meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
There are none, so moved. Anything else to add or change on the agenda?
Nope, move to approve the agenda.
Okay, it's been properly moved and properly moved.
Second?
Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. The agenda is approved, and we will move on with communications and public response. I would ask that speakers keep your comments to 2 minutes each. And Ms. Haynes, do you want to keep the time? Okay, so when people have 30 seconds left, if you will just say 30 seconds so they know that to wrap up their comments. My apologies, I think I sort of screwed up the order in which I received these, so I'm just going to take it the way it lands. And I will call 2 at a time. Lucia Frazier, you are up first, followed by Kevin Muldowney, please. Please come, identify yourself, say where you live, and proceed.
Good morning. I'm Lucia Frazier. I live in Roswell. I want to talk about election process today. I really feel like the best method for us to add confidence to our election results is for each precinct team to hand count 2 or 3 races at the end of the night and compare to the Dominion tape. Some precincts already do this. I've seen it done, and it doesn't add much time. And I think it'll help everybody have a little more confidence. I guess what happened in DeKalb County, and they hand counted and they've got that fixed, we could just do the same thing and have it fixed. All of us Election Day workers got an email incentivizing us to get the memory cards to the check-in in less than 1 hour, and that's great. I think it's good to bring results in a timely manner, but I don't want to confuse all the workers to not verify everything is correct before racing out the door, because there's a lot of steps, there's a little bit of meticulous actions that need to be done, and I just want to make sure it's all done right. So I really think we need to encourage the workers to just hand count at least 1 or 2 races, and it's really on us, I think, from each precinct to make sure that we're verifying what goes out the door, as we kind of are the guardians of what's in there, and make sure that what leaves the door is correct.
30 seconds.
So just let's encourage all the workers on Election Day to just hand count a race or 2, verify that the tape shows what we got, and then if we can announce something like that, I think everybody would have a little more confidence in our elections. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Kevin Muldowney, and after him, if Candy Muldowney could be ready, please.
Morning, guys. We're quickly approaching another election, and what has been done to restore the credibility in Fulton's election process? Nothing. We have seen firsthand the vulnerability or the inability of our prized Dominion voting machines to deliver great results in DeKalb County's Democrat commissioner's race, where the presumed last place finisher actually won the race. That was the only recount that was performed. Makes you wonder what a closer look of other races would have revealed. There was a strong presence at the BOC meeting a month ago to speak out against the use of vulnerable, expensive, and not unnecessarily complex computerized voting machines. The very next day, we wanted to speak on those same points at the regularly scheduled BRE meeting. We arrived and found the meeting was canceled. No notice posted. It was replaced a week later with a special meeting where the public comment is completely suppressed and not allowed. Coincidence? Who knows? Our past primary election was recertified merely on Dominique's word. In that special meeting, he had presented to 3 board members, no data, no hard numbers, only his opinion that the results this time were correct. Is that legal? I don't know. If this scenario were to play out in the real world of private industry, everyone probably would have been fired. As I said, we have some real problems with our election process.
30 seconds.
And the public's perception of legitimacy of the results. When questions arise regarding the results of this next election, this board needs to address those very real concerns and rectify all with a full recount that produces reliable results. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, Candy Muldowney, and after that, Matt Rowancheck.
Hi, good morning. I'm Candy Muldowney from Milton. I was one of the many citizens that had their personal information exposed by the incompetence of Happy Faces temp agency as they were acting on behalf of Fulton County. I was notified of the breach and was told to expect a letter offering credit monitoring. It has been 3 weeks and I have still not received the promised details via USPS. I have been a victim of identity theft in the past, and it was an ongoing nightmare. I understand Fulton's problem was first dealt with by firing the whistleblower. This is extremely unethical and counterproductive. We need to fire the agency involved. Fire Happy Faces. We have been here before. This has to be the last straw. They have put our elections at risk, and now they are putting the citizens' identity at risk, including my own personal and confidential information for all the world to see. Fulton needs to stop using any temp agencies that have anything to do with our elections and hire competent employees to run our elections department. We then need to fill our temporary elections positions directly with capable and motivated residents of Fulton County. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to make sure that you receive that letter, and I'm not sure about the timing sequence. Will you just make a note of Candy Muldowney's name and have somebody get back to her to make sure that that happens? Let me just also correct one fact. I don't usually speak during public comment, but I just want to make sure I correct one thing that is important. The gentleman who received the documentation was not fired because he was a whistleblower. He was fired because he was not even fired. He was not eligible to serve as a poll worker in Fulton County. He lives in Walton County. You have to live in a contiguous county. The Walton County Board of Elections erroneously gave him the required pass to apply for us, and when we discovered that, we notified him. So it's going to be really clear about the facts of that particular instance. But thank you. Yes, sir?
All right, good morning, Board. My name is Matt Ronzak, Fulton County resident. I want to read part of your oath to remind you in this upcoming election. It says that I will, to the best of my ability, prevent any fraud, deceit, or abuse in carrying on the same, and that I will make a true and perfect return of such primaries and elections, and that I will at all times truly, impartially, and faithfully perform my duties in accordance with Georgia laws to the best of my judgment and ability. Some of you have directly violated your oath. It's black and white. I'll give you a perfect example. Mr. Johnson, back in July, there were voter challenges that were presented. Dozens of those were fake addresses, confirmed by this county's GIS department. Yet you were the sole member that voted no to remove them from the board. I don't know any other way to describe that as deceit. And back in the primary election, we recertified. This is multiple times we recertified. There was no documentation, no numbers that you had. You asked Dominique if he had any documents or numbers. He did not have any either. And yet, Mr. Johnson, again, you tried to confirm everybody's faith and confidence in our elections, and you literally had no documentation in front of you. So what were you recertifying? So I hope that there's any ounce of integrity left on this board for this upcoming election. And if this continues, Chair,
30 seconds.
Chair, if there's any nonpartisanship left, I'd be asking for resignations. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Beverly Rice, and after that, David Hubert.
Good morning.
And
And thank you
pull that microphone down so it's comfortable for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to the board, Kathy Willard, and each of you. I am a resident of Fulton County, and my name is Beverly Rice. All of my life, I've had to fight. I've had to fight for those things which are right. I stand before you today on the cusp of this critical election, imploring you that I no longer have to fight, that we have a fair and equitable election, that poll workers feel that they are valued, that our senior citizens feel that they are respected, that all the citizens of Fulton County know beyond a shadow of doubt that there is no uncertainty with the Board of Elections and the poll workers and the voters of Fulton County. We need to restore the integrity of our board and also the entire city of Atlanta. We need to be the example of the world to let them know and to allow them to see what a fair
30 seconds.
and equitable election really looks like. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hubert, and then after that, Mr. Ferguson.
Good morning. I wanted to speak this morning on just a couple of matters that
Pull that microphone up so it's comfortable for your height. Thank
up
you.
and down, is that better? Okay, thank you. Speak on a couple of technical matters. As you know, I've done a number of challenges here, and thank you for hearing those. In particular, I want to state for the record that none of my challenges have been systematic challenges within the understanding of the statute. Second, as it relates to OCGA 212-230B, I believe that these challenges have to be heard immediately by the board according to the statute. Third, none of my challenges heretofore or in the future are based on movers or people moving from the county. All of these challenges are based on the fact that they are illegal voters. Thus, it is my belief and understanding that the NRVA does not apply to any of those challenges, as the NRVA speaks mainly to voters that are taken off the rolls because of they have moved. Not a single one of my challenges has ever been based on anything other than that they're not legal voters in Fulton County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson.
Earl Ferguson, Fulton County resident. I heard just recently of a problem with the QR code in some of the machines. I don't know whether it is a correct or real problem or not, but voter confidence requires that it be addressed by the board clearly to either dissuade the fact that there is a problem or to address what is going to be done to fix it. And I hope you would have some announcement during today's meeting. That's what I came up to talk about. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our public comment period. We will move to the monthly operations report in the old business section. Did you sign one of these? Tell me your name. Yeah, thank you. Okay. We'll jump right into the monthly operations report.
Good morning, board. Okay, we will start with the administration division on page 12. I believe my packet is out of order, so I apologize. Hold on one second for me. So we'll start with administration on page 12.
Good morning, board and citizens.
Morning.
The administration division is reporting for the month of September vacancies. We are currently recruiting for the positions. We are still recruiting for the director position. Another position is the registration manager. This interview has been completed and election has been submitted to HR. However, currently the position is now vacant. Voter education outreach specialist, interview completed, and the selection has been submitted to HR. We are expected the employee to report October 26th. Registration officer. We are currently preparing to conduct all interviews at this time. Preparation of the 2022 elections. We are continuing the procurement of the necessary goods and services for the November and December elections, and we are routinely processing and submitting invoices for payment. Campaign contribution disclosure report. These reports were due September the 30th with the grace period of Tuesday, October the 11th, and we are currently uploading information in the system. Late and non-filers report will be emailed to the SOS. This information concludes for the month of September.
We're going to talk about we'll just hold the budget conversation until we get to the budget. Okay.
No questions on administration?
Any questions? Seeing none, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, absentee division.
Good morning, Board. In the month of September, we attended a series of training courses. Okay, a series of training classes administered by the Secretary of State's office. We spoke to several vendors, Blue Crest, Tatno, HB Solutions. We met with volunteers from both parties, from all parties, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, regarding the vote review panels and the duplication panels that we will need in the month of October, end of October and November. We began mailing out Uocava ballots September 20th. Let me back up. September 19th, we started accepting requests for the possible runoff election. September 20th, we began mailing out the Uocava ballots. Current statistics are as follows. As of yesterday, it was 20,696 processed, rejected 1,034, duplicated 1,743. We've accepted 126 ballots, and we've received and accepted 57 Uocava ranked choice ballots back. As of yesterday, we have 3 that did not submit any oath, so we have no way of knowing who that ballot belongs to. Essentially, it's rejected, but we can't apply that rejection to an actual voter because we don't know who sent it in, unfortunately. Ballots were mailed out October the 11th, approximately 19,000 went out in the mail. Drop boxes were open October the 17th inside of 7 early voting locations. Again, inside 7 early voting locations. October 28th will be the last day to request an absentee. The absentee division is imploring our electors to check their status on the My Voter page, again, mvp.sos.ga.gov. And also at the website, you can actually sign up to get notifications for your ballot, and that's via ballot tracks. The deadline for the provisional absentee curing is November the 14th. It is no longer November the 11th. November the 11th is an holiday. So there's the Monday, November the 14th, and that also includes Uocava ballots postmarked on or before Election Day. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. We've had quite a year of election certification deadlines on holidays. I think it's been every single one of them this year.
Right, yeah.
I'm glad they established early what the alternative
Yes.
was. That's very helpful to all of us. Thank you. Any questions? Looks like Mr. Wingate has a question. Go for it.
Not so much of a question as a request from Ms. Bodison. Given the fact that the deadline for absentee by mail is the 28th of this month, shortly after that, can you please send the board the total numbers as you have that follows that date, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions? Comments? Okay, moving on.
For the elections division for supply and logistics, Deployment of advanced voting equipment is commenced on October 11th, so that's being held at this time to delivery to the 36 locations. Couriers for Election Day are being recruited, and preparation for Election Day supplies is also being conducted, and staff is on board ready to support advanced voting that starts on Monday. For Election Day recruitment and training, Election Day recruitment has been completed and training is currently taking place. And staff is also assisting with recruitment of technicians for Election Day. And Sharon can provide the update on advanced voting.
Hi, good morning, Board.
Good morning.
We have 4 more days for advanced voting to begin. We have completed training for our primary staff for advanced voting, but I did ask Dover temp staff to continue recruiting. I want to be proactive to make sure that we have staff in place in case of emergencies. Our 36 location and 4 outreach location has been staffed, and we are ready for Monday staff-wise. This is delivery week. We started delivery on Tuesday, the 11th. Staff is busy setting up the testing password. Any needs that is required of them, the warehouse team is making sure they get all supplies or needed supplies before we start on Monday. We do have a contingency plan in place, which is the voters list, which allow us to look up voters manually in case of the event that eNet goes down. We did have a pep rally, meet your team, where we encourage and motivate and thank our staff for the hard work and dedication, and also being a part of the EV team, just letting them know that we are here for them. We're doing everything that we have to do to make sure that we are ready for Monday. The pep rally was very inspirational. All division and department is actually very supportive and making sure that we're getting us ready for advanced voting. We are prepared for significant voter turnout. That's the end of my report. Thank you.
Questions? Go ahead, Dr. Ruth.
Thank you for that report. Can you tell me how many technicians are we recruiting and how many at each location? Is it still 1 or?
Yes, it's 1 per advanced voting site and 1 per Election Day site.
Okay, and then the number of couriers. So did you say that the couriers, you're recruiting couriers or they're already onboarded now?
It's actually both. Some are already on board because they're assisting with advanced voting deliveries, and then we also have to recruit additional ones for Election Day deliveries.
Okay, and how many couriers in total will we have?
Usually it's between 40 to 60.
40 to 60, okay. Thank you.
Did you have anything, Ms. Crawford?
Just one question. On the waiting list for poll workers, are they being trained so that if they're needed, they're trained to be able to step in, or are you?
The reserves? Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay.
Okay. I'll report on information systems. Mr. Olomo and Mr. Eskridge have another engagement today. For information systems, L&A is currently taking place at the Phillips Lee and the EPC warehouses. They're also they have also prepped the supplies for advanced voting. Those are being deployed. And training is being scheduled for technician training for Election Day technicians. And that concludes the Information Systems Division report. Any questions in regards to that?
Questions on this, Ms. Crawford?
I don't have a question on information systems, but can I jump back one step? Can I ask about the outreach locations? Are those going to be at these locations for all of early vote, or are they just there for a certain time?
They're there for a certain time. The dates and hours are on our website, so there are 2 days on each campus, and the hours and the dates and times are listed on the website. But those are just for 2 days each, compared to the 36 sites that are going to open for the duration.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah, and I also want to go back. As far, I see on the compliance officers, there's some that have one and some locations that don't have a compliance officer.
All position has been completed and filled.
All of them have. Okay, so this report.
Yeah, it's an ongoing recruitment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Shall we move on? Any questions about information systems? Okay, great. You know, that was a short report for a lot of work. So I think we just have to pause for a moment to understand how much work goes into all of the testing and the setup that makes things run smoothly. And again, just want to recognize that and thank y'all for that.
Okay, registration, Mr. Johnson.
Good morning, Board.
Morning.
As of 2022, we have received 137,674 applications from the Department of Driver Services, online voter registration, and applications from our third-party vendors. And as of September 30th, 2022, we have a total of 854,463 registered voters in Fulton County. And as of, we also have at the September voter registration application, 17,589. Our workload statistics for October, we have a total application need to be processed was 3,309. Currently, right now, we have processed all voter registration applications. We are only down to 500 as of right now that we're currently working on. And our total completed voter registration applications processed for September, our new registrations for Fulton County is 26,367. Our first-time registrations are at 13,373. We have transferred over 12,994 voters. And for as our total number of changes from Fulton County, we have 22,884. For a total number of removals, we are at 9,228. As far as new registrants, we are at 1,588 also. As far as our front desk operations, we have did a total number of 115 voter identification cards. We had a total of 133 walk-ins come to the window. We have sent in our precinct card requests, which was we're at 50, and I believe that was at 694,640 cards that we have. As far as we're still on personnel and staffing, we have 6 registration officer vacancies open, and we're still recruiting for positions underway. We have went through a total number of trainings with Blue Raster, and we've made changes in eNet during our statewide training provisionals, our NCOA training, and our National Voter Registration Day planning meeting, and we have had our call center training. Other tasks to be performed, we will continue our list maintenance activities and also continue our street audit / maintenance on all streets in Fulton County. And we're still working with our third-party vendor and Blue Raster to identify the revisions that need to be made. And we will also continue our precinct card mailings and other correspondence. That will be the end of our report for voter registration.
Thank you. Questions? I'm going to start to my right. Mr. Johnson.
Sorry about that. A couple questions. And they all relate to getting information to the voters before, ideally, before Election Day. You said that the voter registration cards are continually being sent out, correct?
Yes, sir.
Will they all be out before early voting? I know they should be, but will they definitely all be out before Election Day?
Yes, sir. That's our plan, to go ahead and get that taken care of right away.
Do you have a target date?
Not at this time. We just put some in the mail on Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. We sent some out also.
Do you know how many you have remaining? Based on after you sent the ones out on Tuesday?
Not on hand, but I can make sure I can get you that information.
Rough estimate of how many already been sent out?
I can confirm that anyone who had a precinct change card of location change, those have been mailed to all the precinct changes that were made this year. There is a delay with the vendor that gives us the precinct cards for some of the information that we just want to follow with redistricting information. So we're going to send out because of that delay, we're going to send out a head of household letter to those people to ensure they get it before Election Day.
So only the people that had a precinct change would get a card?
No, we're going to actually send a redistricting card to everyone.
Right.
That has been affected by redistricting. The ones that had precinct changes, those have already gone out in the mail, and some of the redistricting ones have also gone out in the mail. But in regards to the last few that are remaining, and we'll give you those totals, we're going to send out a letter because there's a delay with the vendor that gives us the cards.
Okay, so you can send a letter that has all the card information on it, just so people get it.
That'll be done before the end of next week.
Okay, I was just about to ask for a target date.
It'll be done before the end of next week.
Right, and the reason why I'm asking is so many people are concerned that between redistricting and precinct location changes, we want to make sure that on election day, people know where to go and make sure, as well as humanly possible, that people go to the correct location. Because we also understand that it's going to be a little harder if you get to the wrong location before 5 o'clock, you're going to have to go to another location as opposed to, so.
Right, and people can also go to MVP now because everything is up to date. They can go in MVP to view their sample ballot. They can view their polling site for Election Day. All that's is available. We're just going to also put a letter in the mail as well.
I got to tell you, I'm pushing that, but my grandmama said I don't do that, so.
I can understand.
Let's try to get a letter out. Thank you.
No problem.
That's it.
And just for the people who are watching or in the room, MVP is my voter page at the Secretary of State's website where you can enter in some of your information and get the information you need to make a plan to vote.
And Madam Chair, they can also go to the Fulton County app if they go online too.
Okay.
Always selling it.
Other questions?
Yes, I have a question on the redistricting. We're totally complete as far as making sure everybody's in their right precinct, correct?
We're still working through that process. We should have everybody completed. I'm sorry, we are still working through that process. We're just going over a few things that we want to make sure that are correct.
And that's why you're working with Blue Raster?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but that should be completed and they should be notified.
Yes, because
before
our
action.
last Blue Raster report, we was down to like, I believe like 2,300. So we were working on this week to try to get that number down by Friday.
Okay, all right. Can you let us know when you get that number, when you get that completed?
Sure.
All right,
All
thank
right.
you.
Teresa?
So the goal is to have everybody in their correct precincts by Friday, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then as far as the redistricting and precinct changes and having people to go to MVP, we have that on the website, right, for them to do that?
Right, there's a link on our website to take you to MVP as well.
Okay, I just wanted the public to know that
Yes.
as well, because as Mr. Johnson said, it's really important, as we know. And I do have some questions about the registration. So when we asked Ms. Marshall at our last meeting to get back to us on new registered voters for 2022, she gave us 839 new registrants. On this list, this is registration applications that are 29,000 for August, and then there's 17,589 in September. These are distinct groups of people, right? Applications, correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay.
These are all from driver's services. This whole chart are the numbers from the Department of Driver Services.
But they're for 2022, right?
Yeah.
But Shamira sent us an email, new registrants for 2022 are 800.
I'll have her clarify her email to you.
Okay.
And see where
Well,
she-
let me also state that 839, as she reported, was since January the 1st of 2022. So, and I don't mean to interrupt you, Kathleen, but you kind of honed in on, what I really want to take up here in clarity is that we had and was delivered that 839 number through September 28th of 2022. As I look on page 25 of today's report for registrations, I guess it's Mr. Johnson. I don't see that. I guess Ms. Marshall's not present today, but you had reported, and it is on the line, total new registrations to Fulton County. This is showing 26,367. Then right below that and indented more to the left, you have a line, new registration first time at 13,373. Can you help us understand what the variance or difference there is?
Yes, sir. It increased in the month of September. It's actually at, 17,000 applications of all voters. I do apologize for that.
Well, I think if you added transferred into Fulton and new registration first time, if you were adding those numbers up, you would come to the 26,000.
Well, then relabel, because in this report, new registrations first time mean to me just that. These are not transfers. These are not, record changes. These are supposedly, first time new registrants. And, if that's different, then this report needs to be changed so that it does reflect the proper labeling. And
Yeah.
I'm still not, I still don't understand then, again, what is the 26,367 number? What does that represent?
What I just said, the new registration line of 13,373 and the transferred into Fulton County line 12,994. I believe if you added those up, it would total that.
Okay, so let me just make sure that I transferred into Fulton, then, that collectively then also looks like a new registration? Is that how that is supposed to be interpreted?
We probably just need to we should take some time to look at this chart and put it in a format that we feel comfortable with. What this means are total new registrations to Fulton County. New registration itself is first-time registrants anywhere.
Like I said, if that's the case, we just need to then do some work to relabel this.
Yeah, we can do that.
And that's fine.
I'll have Ms. Marshall send that back out.
And again, please, Ms. Williams, we need clarification on her statement about this 839 number, because obviously there is a huge discrepancy there. If you look at then on page 26, just to continue on with this accuracy of reporting, there is a line right at the bottom or in the middle of this page. It's called total new registrants for 2022. And that number is reported at 1,588.
Page 25.
What is that number?
I'm sorry, what page number are you referencing?
25.
But it continues on over to page 26. And roughly in the middle of page 26, you'll see in bold.
I'm sorry,
it says
on
total.
our charts, it's 25 in the middle of page 25. Probably your printer, if you printed it out, might have kicked something over to another page.
Well,
For us,
I don't know how that would happen. I mean, I'm looking at the page numbers at the bottom.
we're all looking
might
at
all-
page 25 and we see what you're talking about, so.
I don't care what page you're on then. You see that total new registrants for 2022. That number is showing 1,588.
Okay, because I'm looking.
How does that number derive?
From what we're looking at, she has an itemized list of registrants from walk-ins, temporary IDs, third-party applications, and she has a total on the bottom of that list is itemized. But I can ensure that you get a new breakdown, but she has it itemized on this report.
Hold on a second. Didn't he just say 1588? Isn't that total number of removals?
Could be, Mr. Johnson. The labeling is total new registrants for 2022. That's
Oh, I
my
see what you're
question.
saying here.
Yeah, I don't drive these numbers or make them up. I'm just trying to look at the report and understand, what we're supposed to understand.
You have total new registrants to Fulton County, 26,367 on page 24, and then total new registrants for 2022, 1,588 on page 25. So that does not compute.
Right, that doesn't add up.
Right, I'll have her, again, give you all an updated breakdown to clarify that.
Yeah,
Let me go on the record stating, Ms. Williams, that I'll be more than happy as a board member to help in this reporting and labeling.
Thank you.
Just so not only all of us, but the public who has and does look at this, can not have any suspicion or other conclusion as to what the real numbers are.
Okay, other questions?
So, Mr.
Yeah, I got
Johnson.
one more.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Can I ask one more before
Yep.
I'm off stage here?
Yep.
When we look at whatever page is on for you all, the total number of removals in Fulton County, and that's showing at 9,228. Is there the ability to provide the board, the public, a list of those voters, at least perhaps with their voter ID, as to so that can be reconciled back to these particular numbers?
Could you clarify what you're asking for? I'm not quite sure I understand.
Well, we're showing a total number here of removals that by this report, I'm looking at 9,228.
Right.
And then you have the breakdowns, if I'm understanding correctly, just indented to the left of that by label, then how that number is derived. Felons moved out of state, duplications, hearing, yada, yada. I'm just asking, can we get then a list of those that have been removed, at least by voter ID? The reason I bring this up is because one of the things that, and we'll probably get into it maybe a little bit later, is that in terms of however many challenges of varieties that we've had so far in 2022, I have gotten feedback as well that going back and looking at the current voter registration database, that those that we had signified were going to be, I believe they're in category 229s. I think I could be mistaken. But those voters that were challenged were supposed to be sent notices and given 30 days to correct their records. And some of this, I think a majority of it stems back from June. Well, there was no moratoriums or, any provisions for, those particular challenges not to be worked. But what I am told, and again, I don't know, I don't look, but what I'm told is that a large number of those that were challenged and put into that frame are still on the active voter roll. And I just think, folks, for all of us, as we, progress, with information and all of these open record requests, et cetera, that if we can, certainly report and have the data so that those that challenge or those that are interested or those that want to audit anything that we, have on our voter registration list, can be done with a little bit more ease. And I'm saying, again, I take no position on this, but again, I think in a lot of this, from that I understand, is that, we must follow the law. And, through doing this, I think it just positions us much better to be able to respond in the timeframes that are laid out. This has basically fundamentally a plea on my part, as we go forward. Now, I understand, we got an election here, but as we go forward, that we put some process in place that provides that information so that it doesn't then come back and create, this dimension of extended time and, resource to get this stuff done. If we can just put something like that in place, I think it would help all of us. Thank you.
Hold on 1 second, hold on. We're getting into some very messy territory here in terms of what we're talking
Not
about,
messy
what
to
we're
me.
requesting, and how we're proceeding with this. I want to see if our attorney has a... Could you speak into the microphone, please?
Sorry, Madam Chairman. That type of action would require board approval because that data is not being done right now. And I understand the genesis of Mr. Wingate's concern, but it needs to be a decision that all of y'all need to make of whether or not you're going to add on additional requirements to provide the voter ID numbers of people when that is not part of the requirements. So y'all have to have a majority of you all agree rather than one person's preference.
So here's my suggestion, and Ms. Williams, please weigh in if this doesn't seem to make sense. I think we are significantly challenged, not to overuse a word that gets involved a lot, with how these numbers get presented. We present the numbers in quite a bit of detail and oftentimes getting into a level of granularity that then causes confusion. So I think number one, to take Mr. Wingate up on his offer, let's revise how we report the numbers so that there's some consistency is not the word I'm looking for. It's sort of a little bit more linear. We sort of jump back and forth between different kinds of numbers, and it makes it very hard to resolve them. They add up, except for this 1588. I'm hoping what that actually means is there's a 0 missing or something, and it just made the wrong number, but we'll just forget that for a minute. And then let's think about, as we go into next year, because right now, between now and the middle of December, we are fully engaged in operating an election. And so process changes that are extraneous to the actual election itself is going to be difficult and distracting for the staff. And I feel like right now what we need to do is make room for the staff to do the work that they have to do right now. But then as we go into next year, that we entertain other suggestions as to how we do our list hygiene, how we do our maintenance. I am sincerely hoping that the General Assembly will see how each county is trying to manage these things on their own and offer some consistent guidance for all of us. We are consistent in our guidance, but every county is doing it as best they can. So what I would like to propose is that this be a significant piece of our work together early in next year, and that we settle on sort of both a format and a process that makes everybody feel comfortable about that. In the meantime, answering any individual questions that people have relative to the report today. Does that seem reasonable?
Yes, I agree. I agree with that.
Everybody okay?
I absolutely agree.
Okay, Mr. Wingate, is that okay with you?
Well, partly. The thing is that I mentioned earlier is that there were a large group of challenges that were presented to us and the county back in June. I don't believe I'm mistaken in saying that there was no moratorium on working challenges. And in fact, according back, looking at the notes I have and the information, is that it was stated that during that June meeting in those challenges, that those voters that applied would be sent the letter notification and allowed up to the 30 days to respond. My very deep concern is that number one, we need to be able to clearly demonstrate that we took that action. And then from that action, what the disposition then is. And I don't know, listen, I don't have the records. I'm just going by what I'm notified about, and what's been indicated is that there are certain records that came out of that those June challenges that are still listed as active. Now, that may be totally appropriate, but unless you know exactly, the status of what transpired, so it's current, I think that this is my personal opinion. I will admit that. I think that this is what then continues the continuing dialogue, and maybe at some level frustration, that you've done this. You have the legal right to challenge, as we all know, and it's probably appropriate that when you're looking then back on a most recent list, and I think if I had it, if I understood it correctly, the view of this recent list was as of October the 3rd, 2022, and they're still showing certain continuing active voters. And some of these, the example that was given me was on a continuing acting voter on an address that is a UPS office station. So my only point is that, and I'm more than happy to spend, engage in whatever time I can to try to help, but we just need to come so that we have then a status report or reporting back, some mechanism, so that, the continuation of this can be closed. Because otherwise, in my humble opinion, if we don't, all we're doing is perpetuating this. And Madam Chair,
All right.
I do agree that next year, and thank God, next year is not, unless I'm mistaken, we have no federal elections in 2023. So hopefully we can get our arms around this and really have a good approach and reporting system so that we can in kind respond when we're asked a question.
Okay, thank you. Ms.
Okay.
Williams.
Okay, so we will, like I said, give more clarity on these numbers. I just want to make sure that everyone's aware that these numbers sometimes are a month. This is a September report. We're now in October, so these numbers have changed over time. As far as all the people that have been in challenges, those people have been placed in pending status. I don't know what Mr. Wingate's looking at from a third party. It might not be in real time compared to what is being logged in by staff and ENET. So I can't compare that when we don't have that in front of us.
Understand.
But we can give you a report of what has happened with the challenges and confirm what is in the system that we utilize, which is ENET, to make sure that these
Ms.
people are in
Williams,
pending
that
status.
has not been approved by the board.
To put them in pending status?
To put the report the way that he asked for that was a list of all the people and their
No.
voter ID and what happened.
Oh, no, ma'am.
Not just, hold on, not just what happened to what the board did. That was in the minutes.
Right, I'm saying the challenges that already took place, not the report that he just requested. That, like I said, would have to be through you all in legal. About giving people who have decided to be out of county, I can't do that. I'm saying the challenges that have taken place and been upheld by the board, if they're in pending status, that's the report I'm referencing.
Once again, I'm going to make the suggestion that we do this after the November election and the December runoff so that we are really, really clear about what it is we're doing and how we're going to do it so that it becomes some consistent manner of reporting and that we are compliant with the law.
Yes, ma'am, and we'll look into changing the timing of the report, the operations report, because it's always a month behind, so we'll see if we can adjust that
Yeah,
as well.
I think the operations report is really challenging, and we either need to remind ourselves at every single meeting that it is the previous month's work and not the current month's work, or we need to figure out some way that we update it, the certain kinds of numbers, because I would agree that is of concern. I want to move on if we can, but I see we have another question. Do you have another question, Mr. Johnson?
My only question is, suggestion. At some point, I think we're going to have to sit down and really look at specifically this challenge process And so that we don't have one-offs all the time. So when somebody contacts me and says, well, what about this? And then I bring it into the meeting, or I know that's going to happen, but at least we have a systematic process that we can say, well, this is the process, and this is where we are. Now, eventually, if there comes a time that we can legally do something different and with sufficient staff, then maybe do that in the future, but just have it laid out, and with us being comfortable, the entire board being comfortable about what we're doing, and making sure we do it legally, of course. I don't know if we need to carve off some time, again, after the November elections, but carve off, say a work session on it, so we can do it.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And again, I think January to me seems like a good time. We will be fully engaged right up until the kind of year-end holidays, on elections. And my concern, and kind of where I personally land on some of this, is that letting the staff have the space to do the work that's required to actually execute this election is the key thing right now. Happy to entertain any other conversation, but we could have a work session in January and then make some recommendations, and then that will give us one of our main pillars of how we want to evaluate the staff work going into 2023.
I agree with that.
Dr. Ruth? Okay, everybody good? All right, let's move on to voter education and outreach.
Good morning, board members and citizens. September was a busy month because we had several civic holidays that we were observing as it relates to the election season. For deputy register training, we trained 124 new deputy registers, giving us a total of 487 for the year. In September, we assisted with our events, 822 new registers. And then I know you all asked last month to try to give you an update, so I did it through October 11. So with the addition of, after September, the first 11 days of October, we registered an additional 445, giving us that total from September through October 11th of 1,267, giving us 3,101 for the year. We did 142 poll worker recruitment in October for the first 11 days, an additional 42, giving us 184, bringing our total to 1,080 for the year. We didn't do any voter identification cards in the month of September. For our events, it was very busy again. So we did 115 events, and then through that first 11 days, an additional 50, giving us 165, bringing our total to 576 events for the year. And again, this is across the county. Absentee, we did 155 applications in September, an additional 66 through the 11th, giving us 221. And this is not the total, because we didn't start tracking these, I don't think, until probably July, but 518 since we began tracking. Making our connections with organizations, we're at 200, giving us 2,336 for the year. 4,320 event interactions during September, with an additional 23 for the 11 days in October, giving us 14,670 for the year. We had 10 media inquiries and it could be more, so Ms. Waller, because we had I remember talking to a lot of people in this month, but a lot of people were interested in poll worker recruitment and then what we were doing for National Voter Registration Day as well as the other civic holidays. Just to get into some of the media-ness, in September, we were focused on, again, the civic engagement holidays, our outreach to the senior centers, colleges, university, and all the municipalities. I worked with the Fulton County High Schools to conduct deputy register training for their administrators and staff, as well as working to train new deputy registers that will help us to successfully implement 16 events across the county on National Voter Registration Day. We also coordinated Disability Voter Rights Week, which was September 12th through the 16th. We finished up the remainder of the municipal poll worker recruitment fairs in Johns Creek, Milton, Sandy Springs, Roswell, Atlanta, and Alpharetta. And again, the deadline of registration was October 11th, so we worked with every college and university within Fulton County to not only train deputy registrars, but to host events on every campus to ensure that the students were able to register for voting before the October 11th deadline. In October, we were focused on implementing National Voter Education Week, which just passed, which is October 3rd through the 7th. And then from the ask of our chairman to really plan something around voting early. So National Vote Early Day is on October 28th. And so what we have done is reached out to all the different organizations and partners and our deputy registrars and asked them to host events that weekend of October 28th to 30th, since that's the last weekend to vote early, and to really push that. And I know that our communications team is working on some graphics. So I plan to also follow up with the email to get the social media toolkit that can be used, as well as doing outreach to all of the municipalities, mayor, and council, asking them to promote this as well. And we'll continue to focus in on working with our senior centers, since that upcoming absentee deadline is October 28th. So we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to work with all of our partners. We did toolkits for all of our libraries. So we put packets together, sent them to every library across the county during the month of September to make sure they were equipped to handle anybody who wanted to come in and register to vote before that October 11th deadline. And as you can see, our list of all the activity is attached through the bottom to see all the events, again, across the county. And again, we'll continue to make sure we're getting out, even though the VR, the main deadline has passed, there still is the November 7th deadline for federal, for folks to be able to vote in the runoff. And so we'll continue to educate, continue to work with cities, and participate in events across the county. That concludes my report.
Questions? Comments? Mr. Johnson?
Just one request, because you know I love your amazing work. Can the graphics and information that you get as you send out for the
National Vote
Early Day, can we get that as well? Because I want to make sure we send it out. I think other members of the board may be willing to send out to various organizations to make sure, try to get a push for it as well.
I will do.
Thank you.
Okay. Other comments, questions? Moving on.
Oh, just quickly, thank you. You've been doing a wonderful job, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're very welcome. And thank you, as you've been working as a deputy registrar.
All righty. Anything else in terms of the monthly report? Okay, great. Next up, new business. You all have a copy of the memorandum of understanding. We have had a request from the Performance Review Board and the Secretary of, and the Carter Center to ask if they could participate in observing our election processes with the idea of issuing a preliminary report on November 30th and final report no later than December 15th in an effort to help the Performance Review Board come to a conclusion of the now more than a year-long observation and investigation of our election processes. And so happy to entertain any questions. If not, I'd entertain a motion that we would approve this so that I may sign it and forward it to the interested parties.
I went over this last night, and I really appreciate the specifics that are in here for the guidelines for the review. And so I will go ahead and make a motion to accept.
Second.
Wait a minute. Would you withdraw the second?
I'm sorry.
Would you withdraw the motion? I just want to make sure we have proper discussion.
Yes.
You've removed your second?
Yeah, I thought you make the motion to discuss, but, okay. Yeah, when you make the motion.
Make a motion, get a second.
Then you get a second, then you can discuss.
Okay. Thank you. Properly moved and seconded then, Dr. Ruth.
Well, do we have to do it over again since I removed it? We're good?
All
Okay.
right.
Yeah, I just
Wait a minute. Motion was made by Ms. Crawford for the minutes. Properly moved and
Seconded.
seconded by Mr. Johnson. Floor is open for questions and comments. Dr. Ruth?
Yes, on page 2, the Carter Center says they reserve the right to select the dates, time, and locations of the observation, subject to the availability of Fulton BOER officials. I guess I was just wondering, how will they make that selection of the polling locations? On what basis will they be making that selection? Do we know?
I don't have any idea.
I would expect that they will work with the department to figure that out, since it's in conjunction with.
Excuse me, I hear a noise in this room. If anybody's got their phone on or is watching a video or something, if you could just cut that off, I'd sure appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
We don't know.
Are you okay with us proceeding without that information, or is that something that?
It's fine.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Ms. Wingate?
Yeah, in terms of public communication of this, will this come from the Carter Center along with the SOS in terms of what this program is about and how it's going to be administered? Will there be some announcement coming from that group or groups?
Are you asking, is there going to be like a press release relative to this agreement or the
As I stated, a public announcement, yes.
I think once we determine whether we are going to move forward and participate in this, then I think the Carter Center will be preparing a statement and have invited the parties to offer comment, offer a quote in that and send that out, I believe, today, if we move forward today.
So fundamentally, the Carter Center is establishing this, and it is then their organization of poll watching. Is that how this is to be interpreted?
No. I think you just have to read it as it says it. They're going to be doing an independent, nonpartisan observation and analysis of our election processes and proceed at the end of the election to provide a report to the Performance Review Board as well as us and the general public will see it, of course. And our goal, I think, in terms of all three parties, is that this will lead to a conclusion of this very, very long investigation that, has not been able to terminate. And I think part of why, and I'm just speaking from my thoughts about this, is that the Performance Review Board has been a bit hampered by the staff to issue an actual written report, even though they've collected lots and lots of information, that this would help facilitate that.
Okay.
All right. Questions, comments? All right. So the motion on the floor then is to recommend that we enter into a memorandum of understanding between the Performance Review Board, us and Carter Center to engage in this activity. And all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
You're opposed to it?
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 4-1. The motion carries. Thank you. We asked at the last meeting for a briefing on the budget as we have it right now. So I see you looking at your watch. Are you doing good for time? Yes. Okay. Oh, okay, sorry. So we're going to move to the budget briefing.
Okay. We have a PowerPoint presentation we would like to display.
Where's it going to be?
Is the staff upstairs going to be putting this on the screen? Okay, here we go.
Okay, so a copy of the budget was placed in the BRE packet. This is just a brief summary of how the budget affects 2023.
Okay.
Next slide, please. Okay, so for 2023, there currently is not a countywide election scheduled. The budget is drafted to cover a countywide election if one were to take place. This could be caused by resignations, deaths, things of that matter. So we allocate those funds to ensure they're available if needed. In the meantime, we are relocated in 2023 to our new election center location. During the off years, we also like staff to attend training, do street maintenance and things of that nature. So we are strongly proposing that the BRE encourage municipalities to conduct their own elections in 2023. Next slide, please. And just to provide clarity, municipalities do have a choice during their election cycle for municipal elections. They can either come into an agreement with Fulton County for intergovernmental agreement for us to conduct the election. They can contract to just strictly lease the machines without county involvement. They are permitted to utilize paper ballots and count them via optical scan. They're permitted to use paper ballots and do a hand count, or they're able to use shoot machines, which we do not have. And shoot machines are those old machines that have like the, I guess the hanging chad type things. Yeah. Well, we don't own any of those. But if they had those, they are permitted to do that. They do have choices when it comes to elections. They do not have to have them conducted by Fulton County. Next slide, please. Again, there are additional costs that are in the elections. We did have a resolution that was drafted for municipal costs. It was drafted in 2019 that gave a cost per voter. And in the resolution, it does state that it was to be reviewed when the new machines were going to be in place in 2020. So there have been additional costs that have increased elections over time. This is just an example of the difference in price compared to the DRE units that were the old machines in 2019 compared to what the BMD machines now cost to use per election. So that's why elections have increased throughout the state of Georgia with just election costs have increased over time, among other things. Next slide, please. And this is just a portion of the election budget that we all gave you all in your packets, just to show you some of the costs that goes into elections. There's, of course, there's staffing, there's fees for the facilities themselves, there's post-election duties of retrieving equipment and reconciling documents. Of course, we have voter education, supplies and logistics. So there's different factors that go into tabulate these costs. And it's, that's just, like I said, a sample of what those things are, and all the details are in your packet. Next slide, please. So for next year, we will be doing some things to try to reduce costs. We will look into reducing some of the election day locations that would reduce some of the polling staff costs, location fees, and equipment deployment. We'll also look into some precinct merges for precincts that have the same combos. That'll help us reduce provisional ballots that are printed and absentee ballots that are printed. But we are reviewing that, and we're going to provide that to legal to determine what the new rate will be per voter that we will charge municipalities to have an election, and present that resolution to the BRE and the BOC as well. Next slide. That concludes our budget review. If you have any questions.
So everybody has a much longer version of this, and I'm sure we'll have continued questions, and you will let us know, please, between now and the time the Board of Commissioners approves the budget, any changes of significance that occur.
Yes, we have reached out to the municipalities to see who is having an election and who, if anyone does plan to conduct their own election. We have done that, and I'm waiting for those responses. And again, we will review the exact cost of how much it has increased to come up with the total that will be charged per voter and present that to you all.
Okay. Questions or comments? But Mr. Wingate, I'm going to start in this room this time.
Okay, sure, absolutely.
When
Ms.
is
Crawford.
when is the date that you present the final budget to the board, to the commission?
It has, we actually, I have to go back and check that date. I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me, but we have to review it, and we'll
Okay.
we'll give you that information.
So we have some time to go over it and have discussions on it.
We have a little bit of time, yes. But like I said, the budget is not gonna, we are not gonna necessarily change the budget itself. That, what we put the maximum in because usually we decrease it. We just want those funds available in case something were to occur.
Right.
So usually, let's say, I'm not gonna throw out a number because it'll come back to me some kind of way, but yeah, we present a certain number and then we then if we don't need those funds, then we don't utilize them. Let's put it that way. But we want them there in case someone were to pass, somebody resigns. We need those funds available in case an election gets bigger than it needs to. In case we have to have a countywide election, let's put it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Ruth.
Can you remind me what the cost was for 2020?
It was, for the municipal resolution, it was $2.96 per voter.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wingate.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Ms. Williams, do you have the budget number in these numbers? I haven't been able to find it, not saying it's not there, but I haven't been able to find it as to the cost for the facilities moves next year.
The cost, you're saying the cost to move to Election Central?
Yes.
No, that is not in this budget because that's an operational cost. There will be, so we will not charge the municipalities for us to move. That'll be an operational budget.
When you say operational budget, is that a Fulton County operational budget? So it'll be in a different line item? Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, that answers that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? So the issue about, well, first of all, can I just say the increase in price of elections, that chart was mind-boggling. I appreciate you pulling those things out so people can understand. I think if we were to spend more time breaking through the budget, one number that I personally would love to see, but I do not want you to work on this at all, maybe next year, is the increased cost to counties on implementing some of the provisions of Senate Bill 202. I think the costs have been significant. I mean, incredibly significant, and contribute to this in addition to the voting machines that we get comments all the time from people not liking the voting machines that we use. And I'm going to say every single time, that is not our decision. That is a decision of the state. We use what they tell us to use. So I'm not making a comment one way or the other on what it is we are using because I don't care. We're going to do whatever the state tells us to do. But you saw it on the chart. The increase in cost to Fulton County taxpayers on some of these decisions is very, very high, and it doesn't have anything to do with what we're doing. It is what we are mandated to do. So I just want to say that. I want to thank you for this. I would ask the board members to, really kind of dig into this, and if you have questions or comments, maybe, circulate directly to Ms. Williams, and I wouldn't mind hearing about it. But we don't conduct our business online, so, let's just make sure that if there's anything that we're concerned about. I'm also want to make sure that everybody knows municipalities have the ability to conduct their own elections, and so one of the things that we're trying to do is say, we're not making official action here, but just to reinforce to people who, in cities that if they would like to conduct their election in a different kind of way, we're here to lease equipment if they want, or there are other methods to do that. But to the extent that this coming year can be the year that we move into our new location and we address things that we have had to put on the side burner this year because of the big election year we're in, they are welcome to do it, and we will facilitate as we can. Other questions or comments? Okay, we'll move on to the next section, which I have lost my place, voter challenges. Mr. Hubert, come up. Will you swear him in when he comes in?
Yep, when he gets to the podium. Are there any other parties who will be speaking in response or objection to his challenge?
Excuse me?
I was just asking, is anybody else in the audience? I was swearing in everybody at the same time.
Okay. Anybody here that had to come down as a result of the challenge? Okay.
All right. Ms. Hubert, can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the information that you're providing to the board today is true and mental blank with this true and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
Thank you. Okay, I forgot. Is your mic on? Look at the right side. If you push that button and it shows.
Now on.
Okay. All right. Mr. Johnson, you want to take us through?
Yes, ma'am. Our recommendation for this morning is to have the board take action in January at the BRE meeting. Oh, I'm sorry. I do apologize. Our recommendation is to have the board take action at the January BRE meeting due to the fact that we are working an election and we have a lot going on at this time.
Okay, can you give us some information about the challenge? How many people are challenged? That kind of thing, just so we know.
I don't have that paperwork in front of me at this time. I do apologize, ma'am.
Right. Okay, we do not have the information to consider anyway. I'm going to look into our attorney to give us some advice as to how to proceed.
I think Mr. Hubert has a little bit of information about the challenge. I thought there were 200. Is that the most recent one?
I don't have the exact number here.
Oh, so you don't have the paperwork
I think
either?
it's 170. I think it's 170.
And they were being challenged based upon addresses and things like that?
Based upon that they're registered in another state.
Right.
So they're illegal voters. And it's under Section 230, which should be heard immediately in my view of the statute.
It's not under 230 as of yet because we haven't even started with early voting,
Well,
which
I'm
is
just
on
saying
Monday.
my challenge was under 230.
Okay. The issue was, this is similar to previous submissions of Mr. Hubert in that he has provided information to the staff with regard to Secretary of State's records under the NVRA. We cannot do anything with those people unless they consented. And I was not informed by the staff that we received any consents from the actual challenge voters. There is, Mr. Hubert, a small problem with the intersection of the National Voter Registration Act and your concern that these are, I guess you said, ineligible or illegal voters.
Yeah.
The problem is that we can't make any changes to the voter rolls, period, during this time frame. And so the recommendation I got was not to vote to decline your challenge, but I made the recommendation that they hold the hearing after the election and review all of the details with regard to the information you have at that time.
Okay, just to be clear, it's my view that the NRVA does not apply to any of these challenges based on their not systematic votes, and these are illegal voters which may be removed at any time.
Okay. There is no such provision in our statute that overrides the federal law.
The federal law doesn't apply, in my opinion.
Okay.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so the motion would be to
Defer the hearing on this challenge until after the election. I think we said the first meeting in January.
Okay, it's going to be it.
I make a motion that we defer this challenge until the first meeting after the election, which would be the first meeting, or the meeting in January.
Mark?
All right, but
Yeah, I'm sorry.
wait a minute,
Question before-
excuse me, I'm just confused about I just want to make sure I have the process. Am I accepting a motion and then we're continuing with conversation?
You're accepting a motion, seeing if there's a second, then you enter into discussion.
Okay, I haven't heard a second.
A second.
Properly moved and seconded. Now, Mr. Wingate, your turn.
Oh, yes, thank you. Point of it. Given that Ms. Perkins Cooper stated is or can those so-called from Mr. Hubert, 170 classification 230 challenges, since they can't be removed, even if we took action today, can they be placed in the pending flag status?
That would be up to the board's discretion. That's correct, Mr. Wingate.
On what basis would they be placed in pending?
Well, his issue is whether or not there's sufficient evidence to find probable cause to put them in the pending and notify the voters of the challenge and the reasons why they're being placed in the pending. However, there was no determination or recommendation from the staff because there was no review of each of the individual files to see if there was sufficient probable cause to recommend to you to do anything. So without taking any action, without reviewing the nature of all of those filings, we just deferred the hearing until January.
Okay, so the motion is to defer the hearing till January, properly moved and seconded. We hear your question, Mr. Wingate. Any other comments or questions?
It's very difficult to make a decision right now. We don't have appropriate information from staff or guidance around these 207. I mean, I don't even know the number.
It was exactly 170 moved out of state.
Okay. Mr. Johnson.
One quick question, and I agree totally, but I don't know if we should characterize them as illegal voters because they haven't voted. And I understand the registrations, but would it be a fair characteristic to call them illegal voters?
They're not illegal voters because we don't have any way of determining whether or not they do reside in that state, whether or not that is the voter, and whether or not there's been sufficient information to make certain that they should be. Now, if they had voluntarily said, yes, remove me, we would have removed them as an administrative matter because they are an ineligible voter. But illegal is not what they are right now.
Okay, thank you.
Hold on. I'm running it. Dr. Ring.
And they have not received any notification that they are out of state, that they're being challenged, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Hubert, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, you're saying illegal voters, it's illegal electors. Illegal voters is what I'm describing is the voters on the rolls, electors on the rolls. They're not legally on the rolls because they are not residents of this state.
Okay, allegedly.
So just don't misunderstand when I say illegal voter, I'm talking about an illegal elector.
Right, and that would be your assertion. Okay, we have a.
Can I chime in? Okay, so yes, staff did review those voters. I'm trying to get those totals from Ms. Marshall. If you give me a moment, she'll send that over shortly. But they will be placed in pending status or challenge status. So if these persons do go to vote, then that they will have time to either verify or state what their status is. They were reviewed, is what I'm trying to say.
But we have to take the action that would determine whether they go into pending status.
Exactly, but they did review. I'm not sure why. Hold on, give me a moment. She's sending it to me now.
We do not have the information that would allow us to make a determination one way or the other.
Mr. Johnson conferred that it was 170 challenges based upon electors who moved out of state, allegedly moved out of state.
Allegedly, okay.
And the issue that Mr. Wingate Mr. Hubert just mentioned is the fact that he's contesting their validity on the rolls, and that's where it intersects with the prohibition of removing a voter from the rolls during the federal election cycle.
Dr. Ruth?
So it is 171, and if you if the board approves, then the staff will review and place them in pending status if need be. 171.
Well, we don't have the information. Dr. Ruth, you had a comment, question?
Yeah, I'm a bit confused, but so there has been an investigation on these 171. However, we don't have that information in front of us as a board to really make a good determination, in my opinion.
I would concur.
Or, yeah, usually we will have a report that identifies what the recommendation is. I don't have any paperwork in front of me to really make a good decision.
Correct. Okay, so the motion is to defer this challenge. Mr. Wingate?
Yeah, let me very quickly apologize. Just so we're clear, with regards to NVRA, and in that particular period, we are not allowed to review, look at, or otherwise any challenges. And from that, the clearness to me has been through what I've heard is we clearly cannot do any removals. But does that also include or incorporate doing any level of status change during that period?
Well, I'll ask our attorney to answer the question.
The status changes that relate to things like death and other information that we get from the Secretary of State's office that are reflected in the report that you had about removals are allowed because those type of changes come from the Secretary of State's office. The person is deceased. The person is, there are several categories that are reviewed as corrections to the actual voter database. And so those people, you don't want a dead person voting. You don't want a person who's told you they've moved out of state and consented to them changing their voter registration. You don't want them on the rolls. If any of these individuals had received notice and told us that they want to be removed from the Georgia red list of electors, yes, we have the administrative ability to do that. But without their consent in writing, the federal rules do not allow us to remove any voter's name from the registration rolls.
Well, the elector derivative, I think we clearly understand what we're looking at here has been a series of challenges that have come about this year so far. And I just want to make sure and on the record that we're prohibited from doing any removal of an electorate record during that so-called NVRA moratorium period.
That's correct.
But we could take action, and I think I've heard that it would take board approval to do that, to change the status of some of these challenges, if it is from active to inactive, as an example, or in our case that we've come up with this year, is to put those challenges into the pending status category.
That would be.
Am I following this correctly?
You have the ability as a board to do that, but I would not recommend it in this case because we have no documentation. We have not notified the challenged voters.
No, I'm not arguing that. I understand that.
But you have the ability to do that, and you all have done that at previous hearings on the challenges. We put them in pending, for example, where we were missing names, where we were missing street addresses, where we wanted people to show up with identification that showed that they are impending so that they can vote if they provide that information.
Correct. So if their status that way, we're going to allow them to then vote on a provisional basis.
That's correct.
Okay. Motion is to consider this challenge at our January meeting. Properly moved and seconded. I hope I said that right. Looking for confirmation.
All you did was we deferred the hearing on the challenge to January.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? There are none. Motion carries. Thank you.
Could I ask a question of the attorney? Would that be appropriate or not?
It's not appropriate. She advises us. Thank you. Okay. We are now at the end of the agenda, and we have the opportunity to go into executive session. I would request that someone make the motion to do that, to discuss a personnel matter.
I make a motion to adjourn to executive session for discussion of personnel.
Okay, Mr. Wingate, I think I'm gonna call, excuse me, property moved and seconded that we go into executive session. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, there are none. Mr. Wingate, I think we'll just call you on the phone from the back room, if that's okay with you.
That's perfect, Chair Lady.
Okay, and we will be back shortly.
We're up.
Okay, we're ready. I'll take a motion to come out of executive session, please.
Motion to come out of executive session.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. I'll take a motion
Motion
to
to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Seconded.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.